So most people think they're manifesting from desire, but often they're actually creating their reality from a nervous system that's organized around binary perception. That is safe or unsafe, success or failure. Are you loved or rejected, control or collapse? It's that this or that type of patterning, and that is survival consciousness. And survival consciousness doesn't perceive reality as spacious, as intelligent, as symbolic, as full of possibility. It perceives reality through contraction, through urgency, through this narrowed attention, through pattern recognition, and it's designed to keep us alive. It's not designed to keep us expansive. So the issue is not just you're dysregulated. It's that dysregulated nervous system often produces this type of worldview of polarity, collapsed into oppression. So that's what you see: opposition, collapse into this opposition. In other words, polarity becomes a prison instead of the power that it can be. Hermetic law of polarity is kind of like that deeper piece of it. This is one of those spiritual laws that have been talked about, and it's understanding that opposites are not enemies. It's that opposites are degrees of the same thing. Example of this: hot and cold are not separate substances. They're degrees of temperature along a scale. It's the same thing with dark and light. They're degrees on a continuum. And if you look at it like that, fear and trust can be understood as different organizations of energy and perception along that same continuum. So spiritually, polarity teaches that what looks like contradiction may actually be two ends of the same living spectrum, of one living spectrum. But our egos in survival mode tend to interpret that type of polarity as I must choose one side and then eliminate the other. And that's essentially what black and white thinking is. And that's that survival thinking. It's the psychic expression of that nervous system constriction, regardless of what you think of that word. It's that higher expression of that. So instead of both are a part of a greater field and I can move my relationship between them, that's that expansive consciousness. It's contracted into that black and white. The nervous system piece. When the nervous system is under threat, it simplifies things. This is actually intelligent from a biological standpoint. This is intelligent biology. Your body is not trying to make you mystical, right? Or miraculous or expansive. It's trying to make you efficient. Under perceived threat, the brain and the body reduce complexity. That's step number one. They reduce complexity and then they move towards fast categorization. So if you're put in a survival situation, is this good or is this bad? Is this safe? Is this dangerous? Do I approach this or do I avoid it? Right? It's a yes or a no. Is this mine or is this not mine? And this is why stress often makes people more rigid, more certain, more reactive, more literal, and less imaginative. Because imagination requires safety, nuance requires regulation, creativity actually requires enough internal space to entertain multiple realities without needing this immediate closure, these immediate answers. So black and white thinking is not just a mindset flaw. It's often a state-dependent perception style. And that matters. That matters deeply when we're talking about this and when we're talking about being conscious creators. Because if your state determines your perception, then your manifesting is being shaped not only by what you want or what you think you want, but by the structure of the consciousness that you're actually wanting it from. So I'm pausing because I want that to sit in. It's this or that versus this and that. That's the biggest distinction. This is where you're teaching yourself something like really profound, and you can start with just simply recognizing this or that is often that survival language. It looks like I can be spiritual or I can be successful. I can rest or I can get what I want and get things accomplished. I can be safe or I can be visible and put myself out there. I can be loved or I can fully be myself. I can surrender or I have to have direction. And that's like, I can trust life to provide, or I have to go out and force myself to try to make money, right? I can heal or I can move forward. I can heal my past traumas or I can move forward. And these binary thoughts it's adaptations. It's not truth. And they come from moments in life where complexity was too dangerous, too painful, too confusing for us to hold. So the psyche split things. It divided reality into these camps. And we create these internal categories to reduce that overwhelm. Manifestation gets blocked when you're still creating from that split reality, because desire also often lives in that and, not in the or. So that looks more like your true desire would be, I can be deeply spiritual and materially supported. I can be soft and I can be powerful. I can rest and I can also create the life that I want. I can grieve my past while I'm receiving the future that I am worthy of. I can be grounded and I can still be magical and miraculous. I can honor reality and I can invite miracles. And so the and is not just positive thinking. It's part of a restoration of wholeness. And I talked about this a little bit, but why does this matter in manifestation? Why does this matter in manifestation? Why do I think it should be talked about more? Because people often think manifestation is like thinking better thoughts, right? Like making a goal and thinking better thoughts about it, and then it's going to happen. But manifestation is deeply, deeply shaped by what your system believes is possible, by what you believe is safe, by what you believe is coherent, available. And if you have this nervous system that's organized around contradiction as threat, then desire can feel dangerous. Why? Because true desire, asks you to expand your field. In order to get that, you have to expand your field. You have to expand your capacity. Desire asks you to imagine beyond like your current circumstances, current evidence, current situations, to hold what is now, but also what could be, and to live in that fertile tension between present reality and the unseen possibilities. That requires a tolerance for ambiguity. It really does. It requires a tolerance for uncertainty, and it requires a tolerance for, not right now. A survival-based nervous system hates not yet. It hates uncertainty. It wants that immediate certainty, that immediate knowing. So when people try to manifest from dysregulation, they often do one of two things. They collapse into control, or they collapse into fantasy, right? So control says, I'm going to force my reality, right? And that's where we get all this hustle culture. I'm going to push and push and push, and I'm going to force this reality to change. And fantasy says, I'm going to bypass reality entirely. I'm going to get lost in things that don't matter. I'm going to sit here and think about things, but not actually take any inspired action. And true manifestation, like true conscious creation of what we want, doesn't require it doesn't require either or. It requires becoming the kind of consciousness that can hold this paradox enough for reality to reorganize. And so, in my opinion, this is where the work gets beautiful, because from a spiritual lens, black and white thinking is not just this mental rigidity that we're often taught it is. It's a forgetting of the infinite being that you are and the infinite possibilities that exist in the world. It's consciousness. When we do the black and white, it's consciousness identifying with a fragment of what we are and mistaking that fragment for the entirety, for the whole. When we are collapsed into one pole of polarity, we lose contact with this larger field, and we lose contact with mystery, with symbolic intelligence, with divine timing, with allowing things to emerge and emergence, with the way that life can transmute things. And that linear mind cannot yet explain those things. So I like to call it like our imaginal or our magical mind. And it's not irrational. It's not a delusional thing. And it's not naive. Your imaginal, your magical mind is the mind that remembers reality is more alive. It's more relational. It's more multidimensional than we can perceive when we are stuck in survival mode. It understands that visible circumstances, situations are not the whole story, and that energy moves before form is created. And that perception influences possibilities. That consciousness participates. Spiritual maturity does not mean ignoring your body, though. It means bringing that body along with you. It's not about just sitting there and working on your mind and making vision boards. And so the real work is not just thinking these magical thoughts while staying physically terrified and physically unhealthy and, just completely disregarding the 3D part of things. It's help the body feel safe enough to perceive more of reality. That's part of it. That's the bridge between our scientific understanding of our nervous system and spirit. So a dysregulated nervous system narrows reality into opposites. And if we're regulated, if we're integrated, we can experience polarity as movement, as a spectrum, as symbolism, and actually as choice. And that shift changes. It changes manifestation because you stop trying to force one thing, one pole, and reject the other. Instead, you learn to alchemize, which again happens in that relational space. So you learn to sit with tension without actually becoming it. And you learn to witness fear without worshiping it. And you learn to hold your current reality and your future desires in the same field without collapsing. And that's creation. That's what it is. And the deeper manifestation block is that many people are not actually blocked because the universe is withholding from them. That's not the reason. Although we'd like to say it's the external, right? But realistically, we're blocked because our internal world has made desire and safety mutually exclusive. And that's huge. Because if somewhere in your body it feels like being seen is unsafe, having more is unsafe, being powerful is unsafe, because what's going to happen when I get that? It's going to get taken away, or something's going to happen, or the other shoe's going to drop, right? If being happy is unsafe because it was conditional when you were raised, if receiving things is unsafe because you were either given them again conditionally or they were taken away for reasons of punishment, then your system's going to keep pulling consciousness back towards these familiar poles. And it's not because you're failing. It's because your organism is protecting coherence as it currently understands it. So manifestation work without nervous system work can actually become gaslighting. And nervous system work without that spiritual, that higher self, can become mechanical. What I try to do in these videos, in the explanations and everything that I talk about, is really stress the importance of the union of both. You don't manifest what you want by merely thinking about it. You manifest through the consciousness you repeatedly inhabit. And when that consciousness is structured by this black and white perception of fear, urgency, and internal opposition, then your desires get filtered through that contradiction before you even try to go out and do or make anything. So that makes them inherently unpure when it comes to the wholeness and reality of who you are. But when the body becomes safe to hold paradox, to hold nuance, to hold desire, grief, uncertainty, and all this possibility and expansiveness at the same time, then you become available to really, truly create and manifest. And it's not because you're forcing reality, it's because you became spacious enough to relate to it differently. So that's what I have for you today. And I know this is a bit longer of a video, but by all means, there's a link below. You can join our school community if you want to further the conversation. And I appreciate the time and I hope that this helped.